Hi YouTube, it's the Pharaoh Man again. I have one more YouTube video for you guys. I know quite a few of you have been asking questions about my Machina build that I showed on my last video. My next video, which will be in just a day or two, will explain how that deck worked. I have changed it since then. The build I have now I prefer, but I will explain how that build worked, okay? And also any other questions over Machina decks in general. As you see there, I have a really nice looking Colossal Fighter that I changed into Captain America. It is not for sale if any of you are asking, but I do like the way it turned out. Anyhow, the deck I'm going to be introducing today is a Chain Burn deck. It is more or less a damage inflicting deck, and it's my own spin on it. So anyhow, I'm going to start off with the cards. The first cards I have is I have 3 Chain Strikes. This is the main card in the deck. More or less how this card works. The whole deck works by doing chain after chain. You set multiple cards, you activate one, then you chain the next, you chain the one after that, and you continue. This card, whatever chain it becomes, it has to be at least 2 or higher. When this card goes off, whatever number chain it is, the opponent takes 200 damage times the number chain that it is, which makes it a really nice card. Anyhow, my next card that I have is also a good card. It's called Poison of the Old Man. And what this card does is one of two things. Either I could increase my life points by 1,200 or make my opponent take 800, which makes it a pretty nice card in a deck like this. The next card I only run 1 of. I might run 2 eventually. Tremendous Fire. My opponent takes 1,000. I take 500, which is a good trade. This is another good combo card for the deck. Emergency Provisions. I run 2, some people run 1, others run... Anyhow, what this does, when I activate this as like a chain link 4 or 5, because its effect resolves last, the other cards that I activate work. I'll explain that a little later. When this kicks off, I send other trap cards, spell or trap cards that are on the field to the grave, and I gain 1,000 points for each one, which makes it a pretty dang nice card. I have 1 level limit area B. This prevents my opponent from attacking with powerful creatures. I have an Astral Burial. What this card does is, anytime they try to attack me, it becomes a direct attack. This protects my monsters, which I only run just a few. The next card I run it's called Red Screen. It's practically the best defensive card I've seen. Unlike Gravity Bind, this affects all my opponent's monsters. This prevents my opponent from declaring any kind of a attack. The only downfall is during each of my end phases it costs 1,000 points. But usually I only need this for about 2 turns, if that. The next cards. Legacy of Yugioh. I use this so I could draw 1 card. The ability with the spirit monsters is irrelevant. I don't need it for that. I use this to draw, okay? +1 with this. And then there's Jar of Greed, which also lets me draw 1 more card. Run 3 of those, 3 of the Legacy. 3 Reckless Greed. You draw 2 cards, but then you can't draw for the next 2 turns. I know that seems bad, but the way this deck works, I never am not able to draw more cards, okay? Even though I might be waiting with this, I still always get to draw more cards. I also have 3 Good Goblin Housekeeping. What this does, when I activate the first one, I only draw 1 card. And then, as I continue activating the others, I get to draw 1 more on top of that. The way it works is you get to draw a +1 of the number of Good Goblin Housekeeping you have in your graveyard. So you draw 1, then 2, then 3 when you play that third one, which makes it a nice card. Another main card in this deck is Accumulated Fortune. If you activate it as a chain link 4 or higher, you draw 2 cards. You could only activate 1 of these in a chain suit. I can't activate 1 then the other, because if I try that, it won't work. That's also with Chain Strike. You could only activate 1 in a combo. I run an Origami Trio, and I'll explain why a little later. It lets me bring out tokens to my opponent's side. I run 2 Magic Cylinders to shoot my opponent's attacks back at them. which can become a lot or it might be a little. I run Yugioh and combine it with Just Desserts. Just Desserts makes my opponent take 500 life points for each monster they control. This card, if you play it right, can make them lose a lot of life points. Another really good damage card is called Secret Burial. This card makes my opponent take 200 points for every card in their hand, and on their field. I only play this if it's at least 1,000 points, okay? Anyhow, really good damage card. I run 3 of those. And the last card I only run 1 of. I might run more. It's called Fairy Wind. Similar to a few other cards I have, this lets me, it's like a final card I would play in a combo. You play this at the end, and my opponent would take 300 points. Well, both me and my opponent would take 300 points of damage for every spell or trap that's face up on the field. Okay? I have just a few more cards. I run 1 all-out attack, which is a continuous trap. I run 1 Mecha Bunny, which is when it's flipped, my opponent takes 500. And I also run Morphine Jar number 2. When this card is flipped, every monster on the field gets bounced back to the deck. Then both players pick up cards, not draw, pick up cards, until they draw monsters of level 4 or lower equal to the number of monsters that were on the field. So, for example, if I had this and another monster when this was flipped, okay? Not if it was attacked, but if it was flipped, then both monsters would go back in my deck, and I would keep picking up cards from my deck until I drew 2 monsters that are level 4 or lower that I could special summon due to this effect. When they're special summoned, they go face down, okay? Anyhow, the last card I run is the Shallow Grave. Now, I'm going to start off by explaining this last combo real briefly, and then I'll wrap everything else up. Okay, the way this combo works, you have these 2 set face down, okay? The way it works is quite simple. You flip Morphine Jar number 2, and when it's flipped, both of these get bounced back to my deck. Since they're the only monsters in my deck, they will be the 2 monsters that get brought back to the field, special summoned face down. And that's where this trap comes in, all-out attack. All monsters that are special summoned are changed to face-up attack position and must attack. Okay? It doesn't matter if they could attack or not, because as soon as both of these are flipped, 2 things happen. First, my opponent takes 500 from this guy, and then this bounces them both back to my deck to where they get special summoned again. This combo works by more or less, these 3 cards become a loop, and when this loop happens, I have no other cards left in my deck, but when this loop goes off, if my opponent cannot stop this card, I win, because it's a continuous loop, and eventually my opponent runs out of life points by me doing this, okay? The Shallow Grave is just a backup card in case if one of these are in my graveyard, okay? Which sometimes happens, sometimes don't. Some other cards. Now, this along with my, where is it? Along with the emergency provisions. The way this works, let's say I activated Tremendous Fire. Then I chain Poison of the Old Man, so that's 1. Then I chain this, that's 2. This would be 3. Then I'll chain Chain Strike, that makes it 4, and then I chain Fairy Wind. The way it would work is all those other cards would activate, and then this would kick off last. Now, you would have to be careful, because like if I activate this, I won't also have emergency provisions in it. An easier example would be these cards. Let's say I activated Just Desserts, I chained a Just Desserts, I chained a Secret Burial, I chained a Secret Burial, then I chained Fairy Wind. The way that would work is the damage would go off from Just Desserts, then my other Just Desserts, then these 2, then this effect would activate. So the cards that would be destroyed would be this, okay? That's how that would work. Now since it says destroy all other, it does not count this card. Now if my opponent had a few face-up cards when I do that, well that's great. Now, Fairy Wind does damage to both players, okay? which is good and bad, but most of the time the way this deck works, I usually have more life points. The reason for that is this card.